Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning, this is Brackley coming to you from Las Vegas, Nevada. And today we discuss short circuits, protecting your intellectual property, favorite gobos, selling out, and getting screwed when your show moves to Broadway. All on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. Yay! Hey, welcome everyone to episode 256. And today we welcome back Lumen brother Brackley Frere to the Light Talk dais. Hey Brackley, how are things going in Las Vegas?
They're doing well. It actually snowed this morning here in Las Vegas, which we don't get all that much, but we had some snow flurries happening. And
we have freezing rain here.
Yeah, well, we have frozen snow, but things are going okay. I just saw Circus opening up a new show at the New York. So Circus coming back to do a new one, which is great. And other than that, everything's going well.
That's cool. So Circus now in New York. Is that the first time in that casino?
No, that was where Zumanity was.
Oh, really? I saw Zumanity. You know, I thought that was pretty good, actually. That was the last show I saw, yeah.
That's one show I have not seen, and
yeah,
it closed.
Me too,
but,
until I went to see it. It was much too risque for me, but I went with blinders on. I didn't look at all the risque parts.
Okay, well, that's good. That's probably good for your brain.
It was good for my mind. No, actually, it was a beautiful
So it sounds like Las Vegas is coming back strong.
It is, yeah. We have the shows. Some of the shows had to close for a little bit, but the mask mandate's been lifted, so we're getting lots of people. We had CES here. We had the Magic Show came, so we have a lot of different things happening.
That means at LDI this year, David and I can stay at your house. Yeah. You're going to get the double wide in the backyard for us. Get the fire pit going.
All you guys can come.
I like the double wide. Okay, well, hey, we have a very special announcement about our 5th anniversary show coming in just 4 weeks. Do you believe that? 4 weeks will be 5 years old.
Wow.
Is that when we all sign up for Social Security? Is that our special announcement?
Yes. Aren't we all on Social Security yet?
Not me. Not me.
Brackley, really? Oh, my God.
Not me. Not me.
Man. All right.
Man, you should take it right now. You do the math. That extra $400, you're going to die in 10 years anyhow. Go ahead and stack that money now in your brokerage account.
You know, the Russians are coming. That's all I have to say. Anyway, we have a very special announcement for our 5th anniversary show. As usual, for our anniversary shows, we always have a very special guest. And this year, we are happy to announce that Tony Award winner Natasha Katz will be joining us to celebrate 260 insane episodes of Light Talk. Now, that is pretty damn awesome. Hey, what do you guys think about that? Is that crazy or what?
I think that's great.
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. We are so excited to have her on the show. She's never been on the show. So Ellen worked her magic. We got Natasha.
Probably won't come back after she does this episode.
They never
do. Does she know who we are?
No.
She specifically asked if you would be one of the guest hosts.
That's true.
She says, I got a thing or two to say to Brackley.
Brackley, did you know her?
No.
All right, good. All right. Well, anyway, we're all pretty excited by that. So tune in. That's in 4 episodes. Wow, I can't believe we're going to be 5 years old. Going on 6 years. Who would have thought it? Anyway, for those who have not heard our interview with lighting designer Dennis Size, check out episode 255, and he will be back because we have to do part 2 of that episode. That was one rockin' episode.
I listened to that earlier today, and it was a really wonderful episode. I mean, he is such a great guy.
It's hard to get him to talk, though. It's hard to pull anything out of him. Yes, we're thinking about bringing him back quarterly now just to finish that train of thought.
That's true. We should just give him a whole show. Wouldn't that be great?
He was great.
Just give him the whole show.
Great.
Yeah, he was great. And he's very funny. He's got thousands of stories, and he's done thousands of shows. So it's really, really cool. And what a wonderful man with great experience. And he's a great humanitarian, too. You know, he takes care of students. It's all great. It's all great. So, and the Super Bowl is great. So good for Dennis, right? And also good for Tribe. I thought the halftime show actually was, for trying to do it in the daylight, they did a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
So the Olympics are over. How do you like that? And we're going to talk about the Olympic closing ceremonies next week.
The Paralympics have just started, so they're still going.
That's interesting.
They're up and going.
But why aren't they televising them?
They might be on some small.
Yes, I think you can find them.
Yeah, but NBC's not doing it. Or maybe Peacock is doing it. They're the subsidiary.
I bet it's going to be Peacock.
It's streaming. I'm sure they'll stream it.
So anyway, let's get started with the show. Steve has our first question.
Yes, and it comes from Ronnie in Tennessee. And Ronnie writes, why is it called a short circuit? Why not a long circuit or a bad circuit or a confused circuit?
Or Janky circuit.
Ron, I like Janky too.
Circuit.
Janky is the word of the day, by the way.
Well, Ronnie, I will tell you the same thing I told my daughter long ago. Never stick a knife into a plugged-in toaster,
Or a fork into the outlet.
Or your tongue into the outlet.
These all work. These are all good examples. A short circuit is a connection between two parts of an electrical circuit that you don't want to be there. So when you build an electrical circuit, you try to make the current go through certain paths and perform certain functions. So back to my image of the toaster. When you introduce a knife to the heating element, it provides the current with a shortcut, thus short circuit. It's a new path. It's easier for that electricity to move through this new path, to take a shortcut, and that's just not a good idea. It's not a good idea. What happens, I guess, exactly is your toaster immediately stops working. And then the current has not gone where it's supposed to go. And once that fork goes in there, it just goes downhill fast.
It gets really janky.
It gets worse very, very quickly because the metal object causing the short in the circuit is more conductive. So a lot of current can flow through there. Within milliseconds, dare I say?
Milliseconds.
The current can become thousands of times larger than normal. And then we have the proverbial boom in the kitchen.
Right.
So, you're in Tennessee. You get bad weather up there. Go out in your yard. It's been raining really heavily. The wind's blowing. And you look up there and you see a wet tree branch across two power lines. There you go, a short circuit.
Don't go near it.
Something bad is about to happen. It's a perfect low resistance path for electricity to flow through, and that means
your body makes a good conductor.
Which is why.
Yes, it does.
Yes, because and why is that? And why is that? Why does your body?
We're mostly ugly water bags.
Ugly water bags. That's right.
Majority of water.
Right. And the taller you are, the worse you are. And here's the problem. This is why you never go golfing when it's thunderstorms. Most lightning strikes happen in Florida and usually happen on a golf course and usually kill people out there playing golf, which is crazy.
I hadn't thought about this, but when I was younger, I was a human short circuit. So I grew up on the farm, and our fences were electrified to keep cattle in.
Right.
And particularly, it doesn't take much to deter a cow from walking through a fence. And we were never big barbed wire people. So I have an electric fence. I have a battery up in the barn, and it's sending out a volt or two of electricity every 3 or 4 seconds. And there was nothing I enjoyed more when I was about 10 years old, was just grabbing onto that fence and grabbing onto my mother's hand.
Oh, poor mom. Poor mom, I'm telling you.
And then I started experimenting.
You were evil.
I would take a piece of grass and put the grass in my hand and on the fence and grab my mother's arm. So, that's how she developed that twitch.
And I was telling Lori the other day about that story you told on the show about your mom and the rabid dog.
Yes.
That was hysterical. But where was this again? What you were in Tennessee, and what was the name of the town that you grew up in?
I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains, right. And specifically Clinch
Mountain.
So Clinch Mountain. So that's a few miles outside of Knoxville, Tennessee.
What was the population of Clinch Mountain?
About 7. The thing about Clinch Mountain is that my family pretty much owned Clinch Mountain, and so when I went to school. When I say family, I'm talking about 30, 40 families that are all related. When I went to school, I had to go to the next county to find someone to date. I mean, it's like I was related to everyone in the school.
Yes.
The teachers were my aunts and uncles. The police chief was my cousin. I didn't get away with anything.
It makes things easier and harder at the same time, as they say.
It did.
Oh my God. All right. Well, that's really interesting information on short circuits and not getting electrified. So, but I always think that electricity is made by God to make sure that Darwin's theory continues. Because the dumbest people make the dumbest mistake in electricity. So,
I've got a short dumb story. I was working in the theater and I touched a light and it shocked me. And I went, damn, I got shocked.
You touched it again.
And the master electrician of all people said, it's impossible. You can't possibly have been shocked. And I said, I'm telling you, I got shocked by this light. He said, absolutely not. You're imagining it. And I said, come over here and just grab it. Just grab it with both your hands. And he walked over and I swear it knocked him on his ass. Yeah. He was like, Hoochie Mama, that
Hoochie
hurt.
Mama.
Yes, I told you there was a short circuit in there.
Okay. Oh, my God. Okay. Jenny in Portland asks, I am working on a new show at a small regional theater. Everyone is talking about how great the show is and that a showcase is being scheduled for investors. I have heard stories about how the original designers are usually jettisoned if the show moves to a larger theater or to Broadway. How can I protect myself from this happening to me? Okay. For many years, we believe contracts help. And for the most part, they do.
And then Natasha Katz shows up, and you're out the door.
Sometime, okay.
It's called The Business of Broadway.
The Business of Broadway. Well, let's not even talk about Broadway. Let's talk about, let's say it's moving for a tour. They're transferring it to another theater. Let's say it's at a tiny little regional theater. It's moving to a big regional theater. Contracts help. And we're going to actually be talking about intellectual property today during our Let's Talk About segment. So I'm not going to get too much in the weeds right now about it. But make sure that you have a good contract. Make sure it has a right of first refusal clause, which we'll talk about later. Although that has been proven not to be as effective as it used to be. And make sure that it's specific, because it's not only moving to a large regional theater or to Broadway, but it could also be recorded for streaming, which is happening a lot nowadays, either on non-commercial companies or for commercial productions. In my contracts, I have this huge rider that is about broadcast rights, because things have gotten so much more elaborate nowadays because there's so many different things they could do with your lighting. So you got to be really careful. And we're gonna, again, this is sort of like a teaser for our Let's Talk About segment. But what can you do? Make sure you have a great, great, great relationship with the director, because chances are that they're going to be hiring the same director to move the show. And it is not unheard of that the director would insist on having the original team go with them, and maybe having an associate with Broadway experience, making sure that that person is your associate to help you through the ins and outs of Broadway. That has happened too, okay? And also, it's really important that you gather your own knowledge about how to move up to the next level. And there are many ways of doing that we've talked about on the show before. So that's one way that you can protect yourself. What do you guys think?
Yeah, and it's not only designers that this happens to; it's also actors. A lot of actors will be in the one show, and then it'll get moved somewhere else, and there'll be a whole set of new actors.
Then you have Sarah Jessica Parker doing it.
Well, the other thing in the question there is that key phrase, investors.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, if I'm trying to move my show to Broadway, probably my budgets are going up, my exposure is going up. And if I can get an investor in there, I think sometimes those investors say, we need someone, we're circling back to David's point, we need someone who's experienced who can bring this show home. Yeah, I'm willing to put in X amount of dollars and we're going to sign off on the $250,000 lighting budget, but we need someone with a little track experience here. And there's nothing fair about it. And sometimes that happens to you also.
Yeah. Or maybe, become an investor in the show.
Yeah, there you go.
That's another way of doing it. Say, hey, I have like an extra $50,000 laying around in the cookie jar. Maybe I could be an investor in the show. And that way you assure yourself of a job. I don't know.
True.
Silly. But anyway, listen to, in about 10 minutes, we're going to be talking about this a lot more. So.
Okay, so Femi in Paris writes, I know that it's hard to turn down any job, but how does a designer balance theater art and commercial projects? Do you ever feel like you are selling out?
All the time.
I mean, back in the day, it was true with actors, too. Any actors that took a commercial was just thought of as, selling out. But I think nowadays, designers really need, if they want to, make a living and earn money, they will do an assortment, a number of lighting jobs, which I think helps.
It was interesting. You talk about that, actors. You'd see all these kind of famous actors. I remember Stallone, when he was coming up, trying to prove that he was a serious actor, while in Japan he was a spokesman for a ham company, and there would be him at Christmas dinner eating his favorite ham. So you can always do it out of sight of everyone who knows who you are.
That's like John Hamm's John Hamm. He sold ham.
Right.
I play for ham, by the way. I've done gigs where I just got paid in ham. I'm not kidding you. It's serious.
Well, I have a question.
Spam or ham?
Ham, not spam. Even a guy who plays for ham has certain,
scruples.
Yes, there's something I won't go under, and that's ham. Ham is the lowest denominator.
I have a question here that you guys might want to ponder here for a second. It's how Femi phrases this question, and he suggests that theater art is better than commercial projects. I have done commercial projects that I'm quite proud of.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the word commercial projects. I don't know what that really means. I mean, Broadway's a commercial project, right?
Oh, definitely a commercial project, yeah.
And if Fashion Week is a commercial project, but those shows can be stunning.
Sure. And it doesn't matter. This is what we do, You learn something no matter what you do. And never poo-poo a show. Never. I mean, if someone offers you a project, whether it be some brilliant theater piece or something we just need our new set lit, that's a commercial project, right? Do it, because you're going to learn so much by doing it. And then you're going to meet new people. And all of a sudden that you're going to go down the road, you're going to be doing some broadcast lighting like Dennis. And then you become the next Dennis Size. And you know something? That guy has 17 yachts. I guarantee he has 17 yachts. Okay? So, actually it was Bob Moody had a yacht, right?
Yeah.
Bob broadcasted from his yacht. And it's not even a yacht, it's a ship. It's so big, it's actually called a ship. So, there you go. So to
answer the question, do you ever feel like you're selling out?
Never.
No.
Never.
No,
I don't sell. I mean,
never.
I don't think so. I think you sell out if you do something, if you take a project that's against your morals just for the money, that's selling out.
Yeah, right.
Right. So,
and I tell the students when I do my little recruiting thing that if you want to, we just don't do theater here. I mean, we're also doing broadcasting, we're doing architecture, we're doing a whole sort of different types of lighting. I even have graduates that are out lighting booths for Freeman at the conventions that come in. And they're all doing great.
Sure.
Well, here in Texas, we don't refer to it as theater, art, and commercial. We call it Yee-haw projects and Pish-Posh projects.
I stand corrected. You are listening to Light Talk, and today we are sponsored by...
We have a public service announcement from No More 10 out of 12s. Does it seem like your 10 out of 12 is stuck in the event horizon of a black hole? Does your director have no life to go home to? Have 2 software updates been released since you started tech? I think you know what I'm talking about. Remember that director who wanted to compare a 30-count fade to a 60-count fade a half a dozen times only to say make it a snap? Or how about that fellow who enjoyed restaging after every light cue was recorded? Or my favorite director who said don't change a thing only to say, this cue's a little gloomy after staring at it for 2 hours. Remember Nancy Reagan and her war on drugs? That's right. Just say no. Let's practice, kittens. It's not as hard as you think. For example, the director says, could I see that in a... And you immediately cut him off and go, no. See how easy that was? Let's give it a try. What if the light cue... No. See how easy that was? Do you think we could... No. See? Once again, it is so easy. Just say no. it works. This has been a public service announcement from no more 10 out of 12s.
Yep, it works. It'll take you right out that stage door onto the unemployment line again.
To the Pish-Posh projects.
To Pish-Posh. You're Pish-Poshing it.
No.
There you go. You did it, Brackley.
No more.
I'm leaving.
You're a former department chair. You know how to say no.
That's
I'm
right.
leaving.
I'm out of here.
And now back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid ducks means that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about protecting your intellectual property. That's right. Now, we have talked about this in the past, I think a couple of years ago, but you know something? A lot has changed in a couple of years. And, you know, I came upon this because I was looking at this contract from actually United Scenic Artists. The one part that's really important is about intellectual property. And what is intellectual property, gentlemen?
Property that's intellectual.
Well, you know, intellectual property is basically all the design work that you're doing. That is actually considered intellectual property. And that could be art that you actually create on stage, obviously. And of course, all your preliminary work and technical drawings, all that is also your intellectual property. Let me read you how United Scenic Artists regards the protection of designers' intellectual property in their contracts. All rights in and to the design as conceived by the designer in the course of the rendition of their services hereunder shall be, upon its creation, and will remain the sole and exclusive property of the designer. It being understood, however, that the employer and its licensees shall have a perpetual or an irrevocable license to use the designs in any stage production or electronic reproduction of the play as per terms of this agreement. Any additional use or license of the design by the employer shall be subject to further agreement between the employer and the designer. Now, that is a very clear clause that basically says that you own all rights to the design. And if the employer or producer, or whoever's hiring you, a theater company, wants to use those designs again, they have to negotiate with you. They have to get your permission and negotiate with you for the reuse of those designs. And that is pretty damn clear. As a lighting designer, there are several clauses that you need in your contracts that will help protect you and protect your intellectual property. Just because you go out and you light a show, it doesn't mean that once you leave town, they can do whatever they want with it. In your contract, especially a union contract, it quite specifically says that people can't change that lighting without your permission. If they come in, they restage an entire number, they may have to bring you in to actually go in and relight it because it's art. This is your art. And you have to make sure that it fits in with the rest of the show. And I'm sure the director wants that and everyone else wants that. And usually most companies realize, yes, we're going to have to bring David in to relight this production number. No big deal. But, you know, things change because usually, you know, when you do a show, they say, okay, you're doing a show for the Duluth Opera Company. And you say, okay, great. I'm going to charge you $5,000 to do it. They pay you $5,000. You do the show, you leave town. Well, most of the time that show is going to run its 10 or 12 performances. And then it's going to close and you'll never see that show again. But sometimes, 3 or 4 years later, Mobile Opera Company will call Duluth and say, hey, we hear that you have a set and a production of Tosca, and it's going to fit on our stage, and we would like to use it and bring back the original director and all that. Now, if you're the original set designer, if they use that set, you should, if it's in your contract, get a royalty fee for that. But it's the same thing with lighting. If they're going to be using your light plot and your light cues, you better get a damn royalty for it. And that's your intellectual property. So that is really, really what it's all about. And protecting it is really important. Now, how do you protect your intellectual property? And this is what we started to talk about earlier. It usually starts, A, with a really good relationship with a director, and also B, really important, that you have an ironclad contract. So where can you get an example of an ironclad contract where you can hire an attorney, someone in the entertainment business who knows how to write a contract like that? Or most of us can't afford attorneys. So what do we use? We use the United Scenic Artists Contract. Now, the best thing to do is to be in the union, be a union member, and have a contract, use one of the USA contracts and go through USA because they will help you enforce that contract if something should happen. Everyone has access to these contracts. You can go onto the United Scenic Artists 829 website and go to contracts, and you can actually see the contracts. And there are many different ones. There are Broadway contracts, there's regional theater, there's LORT, there's all that. And you can actually look at all the clauses. And in those clauses are going to be clauses about intellectual property.
Well, I think the problem you face as a set designer are some of the smaller theaters feel that once they build that set, it belongs to them. And that's always, I mean, the contract is your only recourse. But I have heard that a lot. Well, we own it. We own this now. And the same thing with lighting. You know, what'll happen is all of a sudden, it's funny, our fictional opera company will want to rent that Tosca for their theater. But one of the things that made it work so well are the costumes and the lighting. They don't want that. So they just kind of throw their people at it. The rental industry is just, I don't know. It's not a happy place, I don't think, when you see these kind of really tired, worn out sets, and we couldn't quite fit the third act into it, so we're only using act 1, 2, and 4. You know, I still, you know, my stuff, my dance stuff, I get 50% of my original salary when a piece opens up. So, you know, I mean, that's a nice little chunk of money that comes in every now and then. So I think intellectual property is really important. You know, not to go too far down the rabbit hole, we're watching this play out in real time right now with the Olympics, right? The ice skaters who used House of the Rising Sun and didn't get permission to do it and didn't pay royalties on it and didn't credit the composers of this new orchestration of House of Rising Sun. It's funny, you know, people feel they just own your work as a freelance artist and they can do anything they want to with it. And they get all offended when you say, you know, that's mine. You need to pay me.
I think it's gotten worse, Steve, and I think it has to do a lot with what was happening or with the early hip hop and rap where people were sampling other artists' work.
Yeah.
It's not only hip hop and rap. It was also happening in pop as well. So I don't want to look at one genre and say, it's wrong. But
I think it's all music, yeah.
Yeah, but everybody feels, you're right. It's all music because people, for some reason, feel now that it's music and it should be free.
And it's all easily obtainable these days.
Right.
Where, you had to have a record or a CD before. Now you stream, everything's online. Right. So you can get tons of everything very quickly.
Absolutely. My former wife, she works for Warner Music, and she's in that, sort of in the intellectual property business there. And it's very difficult what's happening. To be an artist nowadays, it's very, very difficult because you don't make money on records anymore. You make it by touring. That's why those damn tickets are like $2,000 to see Madonna.
You really need to support your local. You really need to be out there and be a union member and look at what they're doing for you. As they say, if you're not in the union, you're not invited to the table. That's you're true. On the menu. Right. They don't do this nonsense with playwrights. You don't hear a playwright going, my intellectual property has not been protected. They shut you down.
My God, I just saw something yesterday on Facebook. A friend of mine who wrote this, that one actually a large regional theater company was doing a very famous play. I'm trying to think of the name of it, that was written back in the 50s. And they decided to change part of it with new words put in by so-and-so playwright.
Can't do that.
It's like, why? Why are you doing this? And it's like a classic play. I wish I could think of the name of it offhand, but I can't. But that is happening. People why can you even think about proposing that?
Yeah, they were sampling.
We did a show not to be named, a director not to be named, a number of years ago, and they changed some of the songs in the musical and actually talked about it in the newspaper. Well, some of these companies have people that just listen. If you are given a show to do in a certain city, they'll just read the newspapers, and if somebody in the newspaper says something about a play they're doing that has been changed, they'll catch you.
Here it is, and this is from my good old buddy Neil Eilinger. Love that the skin of our teeth is being revived by Lincoln Center this April. Don't love that there is a, quote, additional material, unquote, being added by some, quote, playwright I've never heard of. Skin of Our Teeth won the Pulitzer Prize. Hey, Lincoln Center, Thornton Wilder does not need your help. Why revive it if you feel it needs additional writing? This alarming new trend in both plays and musicals is extremely depressing and short of Tony Kushner's miracle with West Side Story. I think the estates really need to get very tough with this. So we don't know if they're doing this without the estate of Thornton Wilder's permission, but apparently they think that it's important. I don't know the details, but this is the perfect example of protecting intellectual property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would Thornton Wilder want this to happen? And I think it just goes back to exactly what you said, Brackley. People feel entitled to do this with art. It's very sad.
Years ago when Merce Cunningham died, part of his estate was, I want all my work archived and never done anymore. I don't want someone looking at my work and saying, well, I think I'll change the costumes from gray to blue. I don't want someone looking at my work that I choreographed in silence and adding a score to it. I don't want my blue site changed to red. Leave my work alone. It's my work, and don't monkey with it.
Interesting. So protect your art and be proud of your art, and don't let anyone screw with it, because it is yours. That's the only thing you have. And it's being theater, usually most people, when you do shows, the show is going to run a few weeks and then you'll never see it again. But in many cases, that show may be running for years and years and years, and you want your work to be protected. And
especially in opera and dance.
Especially in opera and dance.
Christmas Carol, Nutcracker, Swan Lake, Handel's Messiah. There are things that you can do that easily could be running for decades.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Steve has our last question.
Yes, it comes from Morgan in West Virginia. And Morgan writes, what is your favorite gobo? Mine is the radiator grill pattern. Oh, no. I never get tired of going to the hardware store to buy it and cut out my own gobos.
Oh.
Whoa, Morgan, slow down. I have to tell you, though, I'm going to fess up. If I've got to pick a favorite gobo, my favorite gobo is Roscoe Open Breakup 77737. Give me a little open breakup every now and then when I'm in trouble, and I'll gobo my way out of it. What about you guys? Do you have a gobo that you want to be buried with?
Buried with?
Yeah. You have a gobo tattooed on your arm there, Brackley?
No. But I've used realistic leaves a lot of times and fuzz it out for the breakup. That was my go-to for a while.
Yeah, I used to have a koala gobo because I did Quality Light.
Quality Light. That's really funny. I used to use construction breakup a lot, A, B, C, and D. I kind of like that because it's like a random type of breakup that you can fuzz out and texture the floor with. I rarely use gobos anymore unless I'm texturing the floor.
Right.
If I'm painting the floor, I usually have backlight system and gobos that are sort of fuzzed out in a way that changes the texture, gives a little dynamics to the backs of the actors as they're going across the stage. But it really is about painting the floor. Because the last thing in the world you want to see on the floor of the set is like this half circle, with a semi-hard edge on the corner. There's no way you can make that look good.
For our listeners at home, as David speaks, he's waving his hands around in the air, creating texture and ripples on the floor.
Everywhere. Yes, textures are going everywhere. But no, seriously, the construction thing is, it really works well. But I must tell you, in my career, as it has traveled through the eons, I've been using fewer and fewer and fewer gobos. And now I'm just using them, like I said, for floor texture. That's about it.
Now, are you taking the gobos to your grave?
Yes. Matter of fact, I have a drawer filled with them. So, but I will put him out as swag. If there's someone who wants like a signed gobo.
Maybe we should have a Light Talk gobo.
Oh, wait. Remember that gobo of like the sandbags on the pin rail?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that gobo? Yeah,
Yep.
that was a good one too.
Sometimes I bump into a director who has been gobo abused. And like after we've had a cup of coffee and talked about the show and he feels like he knows me, he'll look at me and go, "No, you're not using any gobos, are you?"
Yeah, that's Paul Curran was like that, because when I first started working with Paul back in 2004 or something like that, and I started having, actually he saw a show of mine that when I had a director who it was this horrible set and it was some terrible opera and it was all 2-dimensional trees and shit like that. And the only way you can light that stuff is not light it, is to keep light off of it and let just bounce light, illuminate it. And this director insisted that I put leaf gobos on these horrible 2-dimensionally painted trees. And it looked just like high school. It was awful. And Paul Curran came to see the show, this first show he ever saw of mine. And he thought I was the worst lighting designer in the world because he saw this horrible show. But he understood that the director wanted it. And he said, "You see how you lit that show? That's not how I like my shows lit." I said, "Thank God." Then he has taken me out of the gobo world.
You're describing what we in Texas call a Yee-haw show.
That
is a Yee-haw show.
That was a Yee-haw
or
show.
Amateur Night in Dixie.
It was an amateur Dixie. I haven't heard that in a long time. Okay, well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on Spotify, iTunes, Google, YouTube, livedesignonline.com, Amazon Prime Music, and just about every other podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org for future guests, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk Insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocht, Flair, and Glare and their paralegal snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Las Vegas, Long Beach, and the Republic of Texas.
And be sure to join us next week when we chat about more useless things and explore the crazy insanity shenanigans in our industry.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye, everybody.